Just a couple of points of clarification. Again, this task force is looking for community support. We are looking for community input. That takes a lot of time, that takes a lot of patience, and a lot of negotiating. And so I know people would like things to move more quickly, but if we move too quickly and people feel that they don't have input or a say, then it just, then people don't feel that they were heard, and people don't feel that they had input on the process. And so it's a double-edged sword. It's a catch-22. Like, we can't, damned if we do, damned if we don't. So I'll put that out there. The other question I was asking of Dan, a lot of things that I'm asking Dan are questions that have been sent to me as the chair of this task force. For example, the question about if I have no license, is there penalty? And so again, I'm just clarifying, there's a lot of misunderstandings about that. And so again, we are seeking input from experts, from the individuals that know this. And so if it's an enforcement piece, that's something that we are going to discover. And it seems the more that we look at this and the more that we get information, we are recognizing it's more of an enforcement issue than actually that the law is not well written. But that, again, is part of this research, part of that time. The other piece I wanted to talk about is exemptions. So no interpreter can work without compensation. There are exemptions in the law. And so I want to make sure that people understand that the law does explain that. So I don't want people to think that they are in violation. There are some situations where an exemption is called for. Just get my notes here. And if you look on page 2 of the law, section 3B, it explains those exemptions. Okay. All right, so what I'd like to do, before we go through and answer some of the questions that this task force is going to help me make sure that we're answering together, is I just want to clarify for the subcommittees. I had put out in the email that I think for July and for August that we should not meet as a full task force. I think we need to start working in committee and doing some of this more intensive work that we need to do so that we can get more information, because it's like 100 people trying to answer these questions. I think if we delegate those responsibilities, which we have, I think when we come back in September, we're going to have more answers, right? So I'm asking you as a task force, are we okay with that? Do you agree that we just work in committees this summer? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. So for the certification, so what I'm going to ask you now is to share who is on your committee. So far, if people have contacted you, if people have said, yes, I would like to work with you on the subcommittee, sharing those names with us. And then, like I said before, in the beginning of the meeting, I do want to set some expectation for those individuals that would like to join these subcommittees, that you have to commit. I mean, that you are going to have to, I don't know how to put a number on it. I guess it depends on the scope of the subcommittee. But I think a minimum of 2 times a month, June, July, and August. So to really get this covered and to seek and get the answers that you need. Okay, so with the first subcommittee, I'm going to open up that structure that we have here. Ashley Hopkamp, you are facilitating the CDI subcommittee. Can you share with us who is on that subcommittee so far?
All right, so we have Jake Hartman.
I didn't mean to-
No, you're fine.
Okay.
You got it. Thank you. Yep, so Jake Hartman is on our subcommittee. I did send an email, and a few have responded as well. Linda Trippy, Lisa Perry Burkhart, June Kruzak from Illinois, but she'll be conversing and communicating through email, Mike Mafucci, and Lisa Demon. So those are the people, and I'm still waiting on responses.
That's a pretty good sized group, I would say. And so making sure, you don't have to, I'm not requiring or asking, and we can decide as a group, Skype, you can use video conferencing platforms to meet, however you want to do it, be flexible with one another, email correspondence, whatever, that's fine. So let's make the deadline June 8th. I had put that out in an email. We said June 8th would be the deadline if you're interested. We'll see how many more individuals are interested in that, but it seems like a good number of people that you have. Would you agree, other?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
I also believe Tom Bensinger is interested in the CDI committee too, if you would like to join.
Sorry, I just missed that. Tom said.
Yeah, just check in with me. Oh, I didn't recognize your name in the email that I had gotten from you, so I will respond to
That'd be
Ashley.
great.
Okay. Do you have any questions about what you need to do this summer? Anything that you would want to ask the task force? Do you feel you know what your task is?
Right, I only have a one-year experience in the field, so I would like to get more seasoned CDIs on our team so that we get a variety of the spectrum of work experience, and that, we can look into the DSPS law, what are alternatives, so far, it looks like, we have a good range and we can get started.
Yeah, and I think with the folks that you have, they have experience with the law and how that has impacted them, and so they can speak to that and then help, determine whether there needs to be any amending of the law or changes to the law. Sure.
Yep.
All right, great, thank you. All right, enforcement, we have Amy Fryman, Kate Block, and Terry Metnier. Do you have additional folks that are serving on that committee? Has anybody contacted you?
Terry's gone.
Terry left us.
Well, we recently met, just Kate and I, because Terry unfortunately wasn't able to join us. Tom had interest, but unfortunately he's no longer with us. Outside of that, no one has really stepped forward, but then again, I think that we should potentially put a final push that is specifically through WISRID and WAD. I take it upon myself for not putting this out there earlier. I would like to extend our deadline for getting people because we have not received some direct interest. I think putting out the reminder to individuals about, hey, these subcommittee groups are looking for folks, are you interested, contact these people.
Yep, and I agree, and I'm gonna
Maybe
ask,
got lost in the shuffle.
yep, Katie and Stephanie and Christina to get those messages out, make sure the invites happen so people know. So what would you recommend the deadline be?
The 15th.
Okay, agreed, June 15th?
We have some general ideas.
Yes,
of where
June 15th. Terry's joined us back.
Okay.
There's some general concepts that we want to start doing as far as where we're researching similar fields, to make sure understanding things like unlicensed vehicles, so we can make sure that that's very clearly defined if there's a place for it in the law. And then looking at what's appropriate for fines, penalties, and a few other areas as to what's in the purview of the law versus what's not,
Right.
based on the questions we've received.
Yeah, and I think that's a great idea, looking at other professions, how they handle enforcement, penalties, fines, all that kind of stuff. What kind of monitoring they have would be excellent. Other suggestions from this group? I saw, Jackie, did you want to?
I wasn't sure if we were doing this now, but I was gonna ask if I could join that.
So okay, that's a good question. I would say we're gonna ask WAD and WISRID and through West, we'll put the call out, but you now know. And I will make sure that through those websites and through those links, that they give us a contact for each committee. As much as I like all of you, I don't want to get all those emails and then funnel you to, I'd rather that you contact the facilitator of each subcommittee to let them know that you are interested in serving on it. So, Angie, I'm gonna make you the contact. No, I'll do it for you for certification, it's fine. Does that seem reasonable? Okay. So if you are interested in enforcement Amy or Kate or Terry, who is going to be that point of contact? Rock, paper, scissors. Amy Fryman, thank you. Will be the point of contact if you are interested in serving on the enforcement subcommittee. Thank you. Certification. So this group will be looking at alternatives, emergency licensure, and exemptions. Okay. So far, it's Angie and I. I have not, oh, this is something I do need to ask of the task force. Leah Sparks, my lovely interpreter here, has shown interest. And she wants to make sure that it is not perceived as a conflict of interest if she wants to serve on the certification subcommittee. So I'm putting that out to you. Terry, Cookie, Ashley.
Sorry, I was like, can you repeat that?
I was not paying attention to the question, I was too intrigued with the PowerPoint. And the question on the floor is Leah joining the certification subcommittee a conflict of interest? Do the task force members agree or disagree?
Terry's cool with it? Okay.
Yes.
All are.
Congratulations, Leah.
Thanks.
I'm happy to serve as a point of contact for the certification, exemption, whatever we are, committee. Please contact me if you're interested. Again, that deadline will be June 15th. We'll also include that.
Pam, I did just want to add that I put a message on Facebook to Presers,
Good.
just saying if anyone was interested, and Keelan has expressed interest. So that's
Kaylin did express interest. Okay, thank you. I will follow up with you as well.
just wanted to let you know that I put that out.
Did you
there.
get any other responses to that? No?
I got some questions, but no like commitments of I want to be on the committee.
We're gonna make everyone sign contracts for subcommittee work. Just kidding. Okay, Jamie,
I will contact you directly, but I'm interested.
you wanna do the certification? Yeah, you weren't here at the last meeting. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. That would be awesome. Appreciate that. Okay, and then our last subcommittee is the DSPS DPI group. That is Lori, Amy, and Cookie. Do you have any additional members serving on? Has anyone expressed interest for that?
We have quite a bit of interest, but have not narrowed down who we're going to be inviting or extending an invitation to. We have Margaret James showing interest, Erin Paschal, Brittany Peters, Barbara Van Harlen, which is one of the people from DPI that helped give us answers earlier, Marla Walsh, and Marcy Dicker.
Okay. Who would you like to be the point of contact for that subcommittee? Yeah, I said Cookie's name. Since Amy's doing the subcommittee, she's the contact for the other committee. Lori, would you be okay with that, or Cookie?
Lori? Who's gonna, which of these people? I will. take it.
Co-chair,
I
Terry
will
says.
take it for now.
Okay. It's just, yes, I'm interested in serving on the subcommittee. That's, and then you, as a group, will talk about how big do you want that group to be. Okay? And I do think we need to get someone from DSPS, at least someone that you are consulting with. I'm sure that's really important, because Barbara would represent that DPI scope, but we need someone from DSPS as well. So if Margaret's on, that's great, because she is the chair for the DHH Advisory Council for DPI, correct? Yeah. And- Okay. Questions?
Do you have suggestions already for a DSPS person, or is there a best way to contact and get that out there who might be interested in doing this?
I will get some names for you. I did ask before, and I was told it's an office, which is what Dan had said earlier today. It's the education, what was that acronym that he threw out? Examination. But I was not given a name. I was just given an office to contact. So I think some follow-up with that would be helpful. So I'll help you with that. Okay. So during the summer, you can expect
There was a reorganization, and Dan talked about the reorganization. DSPS was working with OEE, which is the Office of Education and Examination. No OOEE, just OEE.
Okay. All right, so in the summer, as you have become accustomed to, you will receive emails from me. I'll ask for updates, seeing how you're doing. And then, like I said in the email that I sent to you, our goal is for the September 7th meeting is that your ideas of what you feel might, yes, Tom?
And this is Tom, so I'm just wondering, we have a lot of concerns about interpreters and agencies in Wisconsin. Now, should we have their input as well for the licensure subcommittees? Because interpreter agencies all over Wisconsin need to be aware of these issues and should have some input. Because they each have individual policies and procedures for their business that could be conflicting with what we're trying to accomplish here. I know I could give an example, but maybe time won't permit it, but I just want to emphasize that it's important to get, them on the bandwagon as well. Especially because people need to know where they can file grievances even against the agencies, against the interpreters, so it would be good to have them involved.
So I am going to ask that we hold public comment to the end, and Tom, that's a good question. We do have Rhonda Taylor Paris, who is the coordinator at Aurora, and she schedules all the interpreters. We have Lori Connors, who owns an interpreting agency in the Wausau area, and we also have Amy Fryman on this task force as well, who is the manager for Professional Interpreting Enterprise. So we do have 3 hiring entities on this task force, and I think in terms of representation and just because we could get too huge as a task force, I think that's pretty well represented. And again, we will be seeking out other agencies as well. Is that okay? All right. So again, for September 7th, then again, I would like you to be ready with your ideas, suggestions. Maybe you feel that the law is perfectly fine and that nothing needs to be changed. It's more of an enforcement or an interpretation or an education piece. And that's hopefully what, whatever it is, I mean, that's what I would like presented at the September meeting. So does that seem like a reasonable amount of time to get ready? Okay, Terry's saying yes. All right.
Yes.
Okay, moving on. So I just want to answer some of the questions that Dan did not answer, that obviously weren't related to Dan. I do want to share with you, I mean, it is ODHH's intention to answer other questions that might be in the scope of ODHH, but are not in the scope of this task force. So that is their plan, and I'm sure he'll follow up with more information. Okay, so I'm just looking here. Just making sure. There was questions about the location. People do not like this location. I don't know how representative that is. And we were looking, they don't like the lighting in here, they don't like the setup in here. And some people had asked that it be returned to WCTC. So as a task force, what are your thoughts on that idea? Yeah, Amy?
Actually saying WCTC.
I have a question, is that from here, how far is WCTC, 20 minutes?
I honestly don't know.
Anyone?
10 minutes?
Yeah, it's not very far, so.
I mean, I'm happy to look into it, but I don't know the availability that WCTC has, especially in the fall when classes kick in. They may not be available to us, I don't know. Does anyone object me looking into WCTC? I don't care, just, okay. I'll look into it and see if it's an option, but what I don't want, because I'm trying to create consistency in a location, and so if we keep jumping around to UWM, to WCTC, back to Aurora, if WCTC doesn't have consistent availability, I'm just gonna ask that we stay here, because Aurora has already approved us, and we're set through the end of the year. Ashley has a question.
So you do have this room reserved for the rest of the year, July to December? Or, well, actually for July, can we use this room for subcommittee meetings? Then if we're not gonna be meeting here? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be a problem, we already have the room reserved, and so if people want to break off in different sections, if the CDI subcommittee wants to meet, another group wants to meet here, and I'll double check, but we already have it reserved for July and August, and actually, like I said, every first Wednesday of the month through December. Yeah,
Great.
okay, so I will look into WCTC and see if that's an option. If they can't do it, if they can't do all the dates, I'm just gonna say no to it, okay? Can we? I need a,
So this is Tom.
So I'm wondering if there is a room available that has auditorium-style seating?
yeah,
Just wondering.
I was just wondering.
I don't think so. But, again, I will work, Christina Destramp has been very helpful in trying to secure meeting locations, and I think she has asked these questions, and this was probably the best that we could do with what their availability is too, and getting this on a consistent basis, because, you know, other people are competing for these spaces as well. But that auditorium seating, I do understand is ideal. I do. Okay. There was a question regarding define compensation under the law. And so, again, I'm just fielding what questions were asked at the April and May meeting. So in the law, that says no interpreter, you know, with a license can work compensation. Define compensation. Can compensation be mileage? Can compensation be, you know, lodging? Can compensation be that? It is compensation, and I actually had this situation where a certain entity wanted to compensate students with mileage, and it was very innocent, like, yes, we want to help these students out, they're doing all this work for us, can we just cover their mileage? So asked someone that's on SLIC about that, and so that could be perceived as compensation, but is that term compensation, is it ambiguous? Do you feel that that needs to be further defined in our, so what does that look like? Is that in the administrative code under DSPS? That's something that I think we'll have to see if that's further clarified, because I don't know the answer to that question. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
Terry says, I'm just gonna think about it right now. It's a good question.
So that's all the questions I have from the last meeting from May. So I'm gonna go back to April and answer help me answer some of these questions. One of the questions was, should the task force consider creating an alternative option for certification for all interpreters? This is, again, something that the certification subcommittee is going to look into. I think what we're not interested in doing is, the state of Wisconsin developing its own test. I shared at the last meeting, I was on the WIDA advisory board, and many individuals here, many stakeholders were also on that WIDA advisory board. We did look into to what it would cost to develop our own test to be able to run it. The resources, the funding, it's just such a time-consuming task that I don't know if that's a realistic thing that we are considering at this point. Amy, you were going to add something?
Just looking at the law and how it's structured, one of our tasks, not to be too black and white, is to look at the law and restructure the law
And not develop.
and not develop a new
Right.
task or a new certification round. My fear is getting too far down the rabbit hole on a lot of great ideas that are not what we were tasked to do.
Right.
And just to reiterate, we have 4 priorities that we have gathered from all of the research and the feedback that we've received. It doesn't cover everything. Hopefully, we'll be able to cover a lot of things that are currently in the law and make changes or recommendations to change based on the feedback and the research that we get. But I think making things that we were not tasked to do is going to be very difficult for the task force members who committed to one task.
I would totally agree with you. Other comments, thoughts from the task force? Okay. So another question that was asked was, why has ODHH taken on the role of the interpreter certification process? Why can't the interpreter task force focus on it? Again, this would be something, it's in the law, ODHH, it says it on the first page, what ODHH is supposed to do with the WIDA. That's something that, I don't know what committee, or if that is one of our priorities in changing that. Any comments, thoughts?
I'm curious to go back to why it was put in the law initially. And that it could be because there is no other place to house it in the way that the state structure is currently set up.
Right.
So I don't know, this is a conversation that I've also had, thinking forward about, where should this process be housed? And my question is, can we put it into the law as something that we want to have? I know Joel, this is one of his questions. Can we put something into this new revamped license that creates a safe place for certification, licensure, that is not directly through ODHH? I don't know if we can build it before, or put it in there before the other entity is built.
Correct.
Or is that another law to create an entity so we can be housed under it? I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a politician, it's just something I think we need to research if that is a consideration. And I would ask those who are the stakeholders who are so committed to seeing that happen to be our partners, and I ask them to do the research to find out how that happens. Because I don't think that we will be able to.
Correct, and I'm glad you said that. And so you're talking about the Deaf Commission.
Yes.
And so I have shared with Joel, I would like to work more collaboratively with the